Share. All right, ready to share on all the sharing platforms.
PS3 player.
Well, the cheese-eating surrender monkeys have been eliminated. That's a Simpsons. The Simpsons actually were the first ones that came up with that.
If you do 600 shows, you at least come up with one thing.
You're going to stumble across something.
Yeah, eventually you do something. But other than that, I have nothing makes any sense. That show is just, it's a blank to me.
You mean the most lucrative television property in the history of the medium? Yeah.
What about the Woody Hayes show on WBNS TV?
Well, that's number 2.
On
that
Saturday
is
nights in Columbus, Ohio. That was
a close second.
I have to see if there's some clips of that up on YouTube.
I'm seeing it. It's like extremely awkward.
No, like 4 players are standing there like statues, scared shitless, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah,
it's great.
Now you played high school at Massillon. You played football. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
It's like that they do shit like that. They got dudes in like sports coats and shit.
Okay.
I'm ready.
Yeah, doggies. It's the Brad and Britt cast. We're glad you're with us today, as always, here in the 1:30 live Eastern Time hour on all appropriate and inappropriate platforms. I got some fun sound here.
Oh, good.
That we can start with. Here we go. You get to the end of the year in an even year like this one, and that means that outgoing members of Congress get to have their last word, make their last speech down on the floor, their farewell speech. And Madison Cawthorn, outgoing congressman from Western North Carolina, the Asheville region, he's done. He's out. You haven't heard nary a word from him since he got blown out in the primary, which, again, I contend that was one of these situations where the Democrats didn't try hard enough to get him renominated because they would have beat him.
That's
instead, a normal, more normal, a less weird, but weird Republican beat Cawthorn in the primary and then won the seat.
Now, he did make a brief appearance at Trump's announcement that he's running for president. He was at Mar-a-Lago.
Wait, it's better than that. He was the only member of Congress who was there.
There you go.
It's even better. So think about it. The only member of Congress that was there for Trump's thing a couple weeks ago was a guy who was essentially dead. He's as close to a dead body as you're going to get. So here he is in his last moments, and this is not directed at you, Lindsey Graham, not in the least, not in the least. Go. We'll get it. I think we'll get it. We're hoping to get it. We think we got it. Do we have it? No, we don't have it. We'll have to recycle. No, well, Britt, this is going to win. This is going to win for us. We're not going to give up on this one, okay? Because I got another one that's equally good. Let me run through the things that we're going to be able to talk about, and I'll probably have clips that don't work with those either. Apple bends the knee.
All right.
Tick-tock toss in a Dakota.
Yeah.
Everybody blanks Mike Pence. I thought Rupert Murdoch turned on Trump. And yes, Republicans did die more from COVID after the vaccine came out than Democrats. The numbers have been crunched, and there is nothing left to be said. And 12 Republicans vote yes. One of them is not Lindsey Graham, who voted against codifying the Respect for Marriage Act. Let's see if we've got Madison Cawthorn. Let's bring him up here. Final speech. Come on, big guy. Bring it.
Our young men are taught that weakness is strength, that delicacy is desirable, and that being a soft metrosexual is more valuable than training the mind, body, and soul. Social media has weakened us, stripping our men of their will to fight, to rise in a noble manner, square their jaws, and charge once more into the breach of life to defend what they love. So on this precipice of disaster, I ask the young men of this nation a question. Will you sit behind a screen while the storied tales of your forefathers become myth? Or will you stand resolute against the dying light of America's golden age? Will you reclaim your masculinity? Will you become a man to be feared, to be respected, to be looked up to? Or will you let this nation's next generation be its final generation?
Interesting.
Okay.
So you're either a raging Democrat that shaves with an axe and goes out there and pimps for Donald Trump, or you're just a soft queer. I mean, that's the
you mean a raging Republican. You mean a raging
Republican. Or you're an almond milk sipping queer. I mean, that's essentially the Madison Cawthorn deal right there, right? Would you like to know when the term? By the way, the term metrosexual, super top of mind, right there with pop culture. Would you like to know when that term actually came about and when it was like a hot thing?
Well, I'm trying to think.
Do you remember the show Queer Eye for the Straight Guy when it became somewhat of a cultural phenomenon?
Oh,
when was that? When was that show like hot and it was a thing to watch?
15 years ago?
You're essentially right. It was more like 18. It was more like 18. It was, pre-Facebook, pre-Twitter, pre-iPhone. That's when people were using the term metrosexual. And here our friend here who acts like, God damn, he sounds older than me, doesn't he, when he talks? He sounds like he's well into his 50s and possibly into his 60s when he starts talking about, you bunch of poofters with your flowery blouses. I mean, it's just ridiculous, isn't it?
So, if I hear you right, everything was perfectly on target except for the use of an antiquated term.
Oh, no. He's striking the right notes. Don't get me wrong about that. The tuning for, and by the way, let's just go ahead and say this because it's pretty obvious. The guy's 100% gay. Anybody that rails against gay people like this always, every time, without fail, turns out to be gay. It eventually comes out again at 3:00 in the morning on a rest stop somewhere on the side of the road in Nebraska or whatever. He's 100% gay.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
No, but there is something wrong with it when you pretend that I hate gay people and it's wrong and terrible. But then all of a sudden you in your personal life are, doing what you're doing.
All right. That's a nice lead in to 12 Republicans vote yes. One of them was not Lindsey Graham, who voted against codifying the Respect for Marriage Act in the U.S. Senate. It'll go over to the House, easily pass, and President Biden will sign it. And again, there's probably not a lot of folks who watch us or listen to us who may not realize this. But Joe Biden is racking up the score over there with this stuff. He just is. This is real stuff that gets done, and it is expanding the rights of Americans. Meanwhile, we have a political party and its adjunct, the U.S. Supreme Court, that is constricting the rights of Americans. And at this moment, and Joe Biden's approval ratings, of course, are headed back up again, rightfully so, and they did well in the election.
Correct.
Things are, and within the hour that we are speaking,
yes,
he was able to cajole the U.S. Congress into stopping what would have been a crippling strike by railroad workers who, to be fair, they had a point. They have points. They want better working conditions. They want more time off. They want all the kind of things that workers want, and they do have a point. But he was able to convince not just members of his own party who didn't need the convincing, but enough Republicans to come along and say that the national good, the welfare of the nation must come ahead of the desire even of wonderful union members. And that's Joe Biden speaking, who has on many occasions says, I am the most pro-union president in the history of the world. And one of the measures of a great leader is when you are willing to piss off your most ardent constituencies. And is Joe Biden going to suffer because he did that? No, absolutely not. And by the way, Britt, you know this. If a strong leader like Donald Trump had done this, it would have been the most incredible thing ever. And we would be saying, this is an extension of Ronald Reagan fucking up unions. This
Absolutely.
is not Joe Biden fucking up unions.
Let me give you, as we speak, a couple of more wins for Joe Biden. You've seen the retail numbers from across the big weekend for Black, and the retail numbers looking really good. They're reporting some good stuff there. Also, Jerome Powell has just talked in the past few minutes, and he says they may begin to taper some of their interest rate hikes in December, and the markets have responded positively. I know we can't really analyze it right now. We'll let that marinate for a little while. But again, it just goes to the narrative. And the facts are that Joe Biden, as you say, is racking up these victories one after another.
So Lindsey Graham is not among the 12 Republicans who voted for the legislation. They are, in no particular order. Oh, let's make it in alphabetical order. Richard Burr, North Carolina. Shelley Capito of West Virginia. Susan Collins of Maine. Joni, when did my hair turn so fucking gray I look like Grandma Moses Ernst? Cynthia Loomis of Wyoming. Lisa, I can tell Trump to fuck off from now to the moon and keep getting reelected, Murkowski.
Yeah.
Rob, of course I voted yes because I found out many years ago that my son was gay, and that's when I changed my mind. So of course I'm on board for this, and I'm retiring now, so doesn't matter, even though I'm coming from right-wing hell now, Ohio. J.D. Vance can have that. That'll be Rob Portman. Mitt Romney, good for Mitt Romney. Dan Sullivan of Alaska. Tom Tillis of North Carolina. Interesting vote from Tom Tillis.
Yeah.
Very interesting vote from Tom Tillis. He sees the purpleness of his state at some level, I think. I think he does. And Todd Young of Indiana. But no Lindsey Graham. And Lindsey Graham, this is no surprise. He telegraphed this last summer. I think they had one of those test votes, where they try to find out what everybody's thinking. And Lindsey Graham, in effect, explains his no vote by saying that he understands the concept of same-sex marriage. And he knows that the courts ruled on it several years ago. But I also understand, this is Lindsey Graham speaking, I also understand that many oppose this for religious reasons. Now, if that doesn't get you run out of town on a rail, you are not elected to some religious body, the U.S. Senate. That's not what you're there for. But that's his reasoning. That's his fake reasoning. It's just bullshit. I think we know better. Lindsey Graham, we can't categorically 100% say he's gay, but there's Lindsey Graham is less likely to be gay than the Kansas City Chiefs are having the best quarterback in the NFL. They've got the best quarterback.
Yeah.
Lindsey Graham is unquestionably gay. And by the way, again, nothing wrong with that. I was looking for some information on this, and just pardon me, Britt.
Sure, I'll indulge you.
LGBTQnation.com. So you can guess what their shtick is, right?
Sure.
There. This popped up. This is from a couple months ago in September. Lindsey Graham's 10 gayest moments. Okay.
Oh, I gotta hear this now. This is, by God, this is why you should.
Let me just pick a couple highlights here.
This is why you showed up for this Brad and Britt cast today. This right here is money.
And by the way, we're doing this with love.
Oh no. Oh yeah. There's no hatred.
And Britt, when I was at WBT 20 years ago, Spires and I did have Lindsey Graham in the studio with us. I can't remember what the reason was that he was.
You and I had him in the studio. He was in the studio with us as well.
It was us?
Yes. Here was the Lindsey Graham quote. He said, "You guys are the kind of conservatives I like."
Okay.
You mean liberals? Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Pardon my bad memory here. All right. During an interview on the Laura Ingraham show on the radio in 2017, Mike Huckabee, father of the soon-to-be governor of Arkansas, as he once was, criticized Lindsey Graham for criticizing Republicans. Here's the quote. "I'm disappointed in Lindsey. He was comparing Devin Nunes, who was head of the House Intelligence Committee, to Inspector Clouseau, the Pink Panther." So Mike Huckabee was disappointed in that. I sometimes wonder, this is Huckabee, what uniform Lindsey Graham puts on each morning when he goes out on the field to play. And I'm not just talking about the partisan uniform.
Oh, thanks. Thanks
Mike
for clearing that up.
Huckabee.
Yeah,
Nice.
Thanks for being subtle about that, Mike.
Nice. Oh God. Calling Lindsey Graham hypocrisy on steroids, Bill Maher did one of his, he does this once a season, 24 things you don't know about blank, from People magazine. They always have those things.
Yeah.
And he did 24 things you don't know about Lindsey Graham. One of them was, "I once kissed Trump's ass so hard I could taste Hannity." Another one. "John McCain's last words to me were, 'Let go of my hand.'" I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Okay, enough.
I'm not sorry.
There's more.
That's some good shit. That's you can read the whole list. That's lgbtqnation.com. Lindsey Graham's 10 gayest moments.
Yep.
That's some good shit right there. I don't care who you are.
Yep. All right.
Well, I'm sorry, but when you run for president, they go, "Well, who's going to do the first lady stuff if you win president?" My sister. I mean, there's a flashing red light over your head that says gay, gay, gay. Just own it, right?
It's okay. Yeah, it's all right. Well, but it's he's made the lifelong political calculation that in South Carolina, you cannot be gay and elected to the Senate. That's his calculation. Now, it's sad. I feel bad at one level that he's had to live his entire life that way.
Yeah.
But
everybody makes their choices. Like if he wasn't in the upstate of South Carolina, wasn't from that area, if he's from Charleston, I think he's much better off. I think he could live his life as an openly gay man.
Well, you mean if he ran for Congress from that district?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
By the way, that's the Nancy Mace district.
Correct.
Which, is she's not a liberal Republican, but she's not an off the edge. Anyway, let's forget South Carolina. Hey, all right, let's try this one. And if you're watching us, I have below my name, everybody blanks Mike Pence. And he was sitting on the curvy couch this day on the noon show on Fox. And they're talking straight talk about Mike Pence. Here you go.
I want to ask you a question about your faith because we share the same faith. But how do you know that is God calling you? Because everywhere you go, people love you. Even Democrats love you because you're just a nice, wholesome.
Well, yeah. So where did that come from? Everybody loves well, let's finish the clip. We got 10 seconds to go.
Good person who does the right thing. And you're honest. But they might not like your politics, but they like who you are and your character. So how
please go away.
Democrats flock to Mike Pence and just hug him because of the kind of guy that he is, right?
No. And here's why. You know why. Mike Pence is, and I think we've talked about this fairly recently. He, for a long time, was at the top of the list of the worst Trump supplicants of them all, who under no circumstance, no matter what Trump did, would never dare to speak the truth about what we know that Trump may have said, may have done, may have intimated, may have legislated, anything. He was there all the way through. And yes, after the election in January, on one day, because he didn't do the worst thing possible.
Right.
He does not get to knock one of the four off of Mount Rushmore. It's not.
That's right. He passed the basic minimum for humanity, and in what he did. And I give him credit for that. But again, it's just he was just tall enough to ride the ride. And you don't, like you said, you don't get brownie points for that.
No. And then because he essentially has maintained radio silence all the way up until the last few weeks when he had a book to sell, when he did not speak to the January 6th committee, and now he is being subpoenaed by the Justice Department, he can't say no to that. So he will be talking to the Justice Department, who, you know, their ability to continue on with the investigation does not end when the Republicans take over Congress. It doesn't quite work that way, unfortunately for Donald Trump. But the fact that he remained silent, the fact that he didn't speak in the same way that he has on a lot of occasions in the last few weeks in front of the country when it mattered, sorry, no, everybody doesn't love Mike Pence. Mike Pence, one thing Trump is correct about, Pence was a failing governor of Indiana who was about to not get reelected, who had no political future, and Trump rescued him from the trash heap, which, by the way, is the story of Donald Trump's life. He rescues a lot of trash from trash heaps. And usually, if you rescue trash, what is it? Still trash. So there's nothing to be said there. So he's lucky. He ought to shut up. To even pretend that he would have a constituency to run for president it's not even worth. It's too stupid to talk about.
It's not. There's no basis of it for reality on this planet, on this plane of existence.
Yep. Not. What else?
Let's see. What else? You had a pretty good list there. How about do the TikTok South Dakota situation?
All right, hang on here. Let me call back up everything that just went straight to hell. It just went straight to hell. I got it.
All right.
That's kind of been brewing out there that maybe TikTok is going to get banned in the United States because their ability to gather information is unparalleled.
There are permissions that are asked for on that app that are really fucked up. And I say that as a guy that kind of blindly goes into some of this stuff, but there's some stuff that happens with that app that's clearly fucked up.
We have an executive order signed today in South Dakota, Governor Kristi Noem. She's blocking the download of TikTok from state devices, state workers, government employees, contractors, and agencies. So it isn't as if, every kid who's addicted to TikTok and is having their life ruined is going to be stopped from having that happen. It's, she's only doing what legally she can do, but it's a statement. It's kind of interesting. FBI does say that TikTok poses national security issues because of the way they collect data on users, and you get that. And as much as I think that she's a dreadful governor and a horrible human being and all those other things, she's just, she wants to be president, actually.
But she's not wrong about this.
She's
That's
not wrong about this. And,
Yeah.
and the Brad and Britt show is not blindly partisan, except
No.
when we are. But I think she's got a point, and the point is well made, and we do accept that. Okay.
Yeah, there's just be very careful. I mean, I know I sound like grandpa on this, but there's a lot of fucked up stuff going on with that app. I like looking at the reels and stuff via Facebook and YouTube and stuff like that, but I refuse to download that app. And I know my privacy situation is I'm medium at best for that shit. I wouldn't touch TikTok. Plus, I'm way too old for that shit anyway. Snapchat, TikTok, I aged out many years ago.
You know what? I didn't put this on the list, but I saw it this morning. I started looking around, and I came through a few other things. And the headline is Iranians face retribution after World Cup loss back in Iran. They don't like it in countries like that when the national team loses, particularly to the great Satan. 1-0. What a goal that was.
Christian,
I mean, really, fight.
Christian Pulisic. It's kind of a career-making, kind of a star-making turn for him.
But Britt, I got done with you yesterday, and later in the afternoon, I said, I want to see the goal. I really had to search hard because I noticed that Fox has fucking put an embargo, closed loop shit around that. So, for instance, my first thought was, I'll just go to ESPN and see theirs. No, they don't have. They're not allowed to have it.
Yeah, not so much.
Yeah, but anyway, I did finally find it, and it looks pretty cool.
Well, there was, and of course, there was some extra drama because of a picture that was tweeted out by the United States Soccer Federation that removed some of the Islamic writing from the Iranian flag to support some of the protesters over in Iran. So this led to some of those 19 and 20-year-olds that had nothing to do with that being questioned about America's racist past and stuff like that. So the Iranians, particularly the hardcore Islamic regime, were like really trying to drum this thing up because they're getting their ass kicked right now in the streets.
To the credit of the players, last week in their first game,
right,
they refused to sing the Iranian national anthem.
Well, but then yesterday they were ordered to, or some bad shit's going to happen to you, and your families are going to see some bad shit happen to you.
I understand that. So I'm looking around, and I hope nothing happens to these guys. I mean, they played hard. You lose a game 1-0, and that's the way it goes. However, to be fair, had the United States lost, I think that every one of these players would have been in mortal danger in our country, don't you think?
Without question.
But we don't want to talk about no. I found an old story. It popped up about what happened in Iraq 20 years ago. And the guy in charge of the Iraqi Soccer Federation was, that's right, Uday Hussein, one of Saddam Hussein's two idiot kids. And
the other one being Uday and Qusay.
Yeah. And those players really did suffer.
Yeah.
They really, really did suffer. Physical torture, family, the whole thing. And it's just.
Which it was why it was so important for George W. Bush and America to initiate regime change in Iraq. USA! That didn't work out so nicely for us. Yeah. Speaking of the World Cup, you may have seen this story. Over the period of 10 or 12 years when Qatar was building all sorts of streets and all sorts of trains and stadiums, these massive stadiums you're now seeing on television, there were all of these stories kind of under the surface that, all these migrant workers are not being paid shit or dying. And you have a member of the government there, the royal family, acknowledging it's probably between 400 and 500 of them died over the course of a decade. And if he's acknowledging that, you could probably go ahead and double that, Brad. 400 or 500.
I did hear the number 1,000.
Yeah,
a few weeks ago. But Britt, I'm going to have to part ways with you and your worker safety liberals.
Here's my
Britt, how do you make an omelet? What do you have to do to eggs?
You got to break some eggs.
That's exactly right. Exactly right.
Here's my Fox News whataboutism on that. What about the Hoover Dam? Yeah, see right there. Exactly. How about that? How about all those guys that
fell off the World Trade Center and off the Empire State Building when they were building those too. So therefore, it's even.
That's right.
Whataboutism always works.
Exactly. I mean, the Hoover Dam was like 110 years ago, but still, goddamn it, a lot of guys died, and you Americans won't own up to it. Oh, that's funny shit. No, it's. I mean, it's disgusting. And if you see it, he's in an interview with Piers Morgan, and he kind of just tosses off the number like you're like, I think I'm going to get like the case of gum when I go to Costco this week. I mean, it was like that blithely that he just kind of tossed off. It's probably between like 400, 500. I mean, we're still talking about it. It's a round number. We're still looking at it. And and I'm not saying that I'm not a part of the problem, but when you see Coca-Cola and all of these McDonald's and everybody else, it's the beautiful game, and the whole world comes to watch this, and it's so clear and it's so obvious that this shit was built on the backs of dead bodies. It's like an A to B situation, right? Just all of these people.
Yeah, it is. It's not pretty. All right, here you go. I thought Rupert Murdoch turned on Trump. And that was the line going around the last few weeks. Well, the Wall Street Journal has ever come out and said the New York Post relegated his announcement to Florida man makes announcement. See page 26. Remember all that shit?
Yeah, because the Murdoch family has fallen in love with Ron DeSantis.
Except for one thing. The Fox News channel, not so much. So much. And in the last 4 days, definitely not so much, because Bubble World over there, on purpose, just as sure as the Chinese government has clamped down on all kinds of social media interaction over the protests against President Xi's COVID policy, even bringing out the army and using every weapon that they've got at their disposal as the world's largest police state to clamp down on information there. The Fox News channel has done everything they can to not reveal to its audience that Donald Trump last weekend had dinner with the number one anti-Semite in the country and Kanye West. And see what I did there? See, it's an old trick. It's an old comedian's trick. I learned it from Jay Leno. It's
a little misdirection. Yeah. I burned myself up in the garage last week. Do you hear about that?
Right. So here are the numbers collected here by the Washington Post via the analysis of Internet Archive data. Hourly mentions of Fuentes on the 3 cable news channels. In the 109 hours after November 25th, that's when the story broke, on CNN, they mentioned him 500. It's hard to read this. What's his name? 39 times on CNN, 52 times on CNN, and once on Fox. Okay. In prime time on November 28th, let's see, that would be Monday, every hour on CNN, every hour on MSNBC, except for the 9 o'clock hour, Rachel Maddow, because she can leave that kind of shit to everybody else. Not once on Fox News. That's a better way to term this. When it really broke, they covered it up. They tried to cover it. Now, why would they cover it up, Britt? If Rupert Murdoch has really turned on Trump, this is the moment to pile on. Let me answer that question. Why? I mean, they want to hedge their bets a little bit, right? Of course. You got to hedge it a little bit, don't you? Right. Plus, by not mentioning at all, it gives these people that room to maneuver and come back around and say, why are you people talking about this? No one cares about it. Yeah, that's it. And the reason we can say no one cares about it is because we decided we were not going to care about it and tell our audience about it. And they don't come back to us and say, why aren't you talking about this? That's not the kind of the kind of media exchange or communication exchange that they have with their audience, because they just don't report and the audience decides. It's we decide, fuck you, right? That's really the Fox.
But you're correct in pointing this out, because to the broad swath of conservatives, and as far as influence, the Fox News channel, way bigger than the other things you mentioned. The Wall Street Journal editorial page certainly has its audience, but that's among the country club level Republicans. And the New York Post, I don't know who the fuck they influence or whatever, but
that's so stupid because it's true. Because in terms of actual influence, the New York Post has been, lining for the birdcage, for all the years that Rupert Murdoch has owned it. Has it ever had the actual kind of political influence that he thinks it does? I guess maybe within New York City when there's a mayoral race or going after Andrew Cuomo as the governor, and he can put him on the cover, 25 straight days and embarrass the shit out of him and makes him feel good. But you're right. Nationally, the New York Post is nothing. You're right.
Did you ever see? There's a movie called that Mike Myers did 30 years ago called "So I Married an Axe Murderer," and he's got these Scottish parents, and he says to his mother likes to read the National Enquirer, and she refers to it as news, and he says to her, "It's funny that you refer to that as news," and she goes, "There's news in here," and that's what I think of. If you have anybody in your life who relies on the New York Post as like, oh, this is my go-to, you probably have to start medicating them, wouldn't you? You probably have to just start breaking the pills in half and putting it in their applesauce or something, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Phil Bump of the Washington Post does the number crunching on this. And on their Sunday fake media criticism show hosted by Howie Kurtz, he brought it up. And he and the panel, which included Meghan McCain, discussed what had happened. And Howard Kurtz at the very end says, with the media being highly critical of this dinner, do you think it's deserved?
Yeah.
And one of the guests says, oh, I think it's definitely deserved. From that point on, Fox News itself offered little to no criticism at all. So that's how they can say, oh, we did mention it.
Oh,
right.
Dude, I forgot to tell you this. Are you surprised now, by the way, that this story has reached the crescendo that it has, and it stuck around for about a week? This Fuentes Kanye situation, because usually they're able to kind of foul this off and get away from it, but they're having to drown in this shit right now. I'm kind of surprised that it stuck around. But there was a great story on the NBC News website about, I don't know if you saw it, but it was called Inside the Meeting and how it was set up and everything. And in this story, it said, well, the security detail at Mar-a-Lago has been revamped, and they're not going to be allowing people like Fuentes and Kanye. They've really gone over their protocols for who's allowed in to have dinner with Donald Trump now. The fucked up half-ass security at Mar-a-Lago has now been revamped, and they're going to learn from this, Brad. They're going to do a good job from now on. It's a fantastic story. I got to try to find it, but it's really, really good. They're trying to. There's this one woman in particular, and she has like an Italian name, and she's kind of the one that's being thrown under the bus. But it's like nobody, it appears, has been fired and blamed for this, because you can't really blame anybody. It's Trump's fault.
Yeah, so it's his fault. And when Maya Angelou said all those years ago, you've heard it a million times, when someone tells you who they are, believe them. Trump retired that trophy. Trump has been telling us who he is for 40 years. A lot of people decided they never wanted to believe him.
That's correct. It's a Mark Caputo story, and it says, in damage control, Trump's campaign is now instituting new vetting procedures and gatekeeping efforts as details emerge about how Fuentes and the former president found themselves. You know what this is all about? This is about 50 years of Donald Trump being a star fucker.
But
that's what this is about.
Just stop. Donald Trump, for the last 6 months, it has been publicly discussed, I believe, you may have heard this, had government documents, secret documents, at that beach house or whatever the fuck it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, all these months later, the supposed security there, which he pretended to brag about, and said, "Well, then nobody could have seen them. It's Mar." Is so good, is so wonderfully tight that these goofballs got in there to hang out with Donald Trump.
That's correct.
So to me, that's just another thing that's not going to be helpful to him if he has to defend himself in a trial, because he may as well have just taken all those boxes and put them out on I-95.
Oh, yeah, it's with a big sign, like it's the Roadrunner sign that says free birdseed. Yeah, just put it right there.
May as well done.
Her name, the woman who they're trying to blame this on is Karen Giorno. She's one of the many aides that are there at Mar-a-Lago, and she's kind of
from the DiGiorno pizza, frozen pizza.
She is. She's from those. She apparently went to the airport to get. But this really is about 45 to 50 years of Donald Trump being a star fucker. When he would hang out at Studio 54, wanting to have the rub of being with celebrities, with Bianca Jagger and shit like that, and now Kanye's a big celebrity.
It's past that now, okay?
Yeah,
because he's already been with all kinds of famous people, and he's been with Kanye West. This is different because this is a deliberate decision by him to hang out and be seen with. Because remember, this was going to be a private dinner, but we were going to know about it with just Kanye West. Kanye West, the last 3-4 weeks, is maybe the most reviled person on the planet. So Trump made the conscious decision that Kanye West is just like me. There are people that hate me, and I revel in their hate.
Right.
And I got elected once when a lot of people hate, and I'm going to get elected again. And I'm going to embrace the most hated person just to show that I can, and that nobody, in my way of thinking, is beyond redemption. In fact, he makes a lot of good points. That's all he was saying. Everything else, I think, is noise. And the Nick Fuentes edition, I'm bringing a friend, I'm bringing a guest, I do believe it's very possible he didn't know who the fuck the guy was.
That's a great point.
Not the point. That's not the point. I don't care that he doesn't know who he was.
No, he should have known. He should have known. And anybody in that position, any former president who meets with anybody in the history of our world, had 20 people checking out the background of that guy before they sat down with a fucking meal with him.
Well,
okay,
right. And you know, there's a big difference between when there's a receiving line and you pose for pictures, and then later on, there is a picture of you with Adolf Hitler IV. Okay, you didn't know who he was. That's different. When you have him for dinner, game over.
There's no
bets are off.
There's no Jimmy Carter hanging out and having a burger with David Duke. I didn't know who that guy was. No, they go. You're a former president. You have a staff. They vet that. It's in a professional manner. It's not this half-assed bullshit that you and your pseudo-intellectual billionaire, whatever the fuck, rednecks down there in South Florida are doing.
But here's the point. We've lived this before, Britt. Guess what? It doesn't matter.
Well, I think this one feels different because it's sticking to him. This one feels like
it's been 4 days, Britt.
But
how does this work? Within, first of all, we're getting into December, which is actually traditionally Donald Trump's quiet period. And then we'll be at the beginning of the year, and he will have done 6 stupid things in between now and then. And it's rinse and repeat. It's rinse and repeat. I agree. And this goes in the category of if anybody else had done it. Okay, we know that. But there's a file as big as a Volkswagen in the corner of your room with those folders in there that if anybody else had done blank like Trump just did, they not only wouldn't be elected president, their careers would be over. They couldn't be in polite society. No one would. Okay, so there's no way I'm going to say, oh, this is the one. This is the no.
But people are talking.
Not until they have to pry the remote control and the phone from his cold, dead fingers. Not until then, not till he's dead.
But this is what people are talking about instead of him running for president. This is far and away taking the oxygen out of the room over anything else about him running for president, who's going to be his vice president, all the bullshit he's pitching for with Kerry Lake, all of that stuff. This is what is being focused on.
I wish you were right, but he's got 30%. He's got 30% of the country, okay, ready to vote for him instantly. Now, that's not enough to get elected president, but 30% is enough to get the Republican nomination. And so far, there's no one person who is going to get a one-on-one clean shot against Trump. They're not going to meet in a smoke-filled room and agree to all go away. Okay, Mr. DeSantis, you got elected in Florida this time by a big number. We all bow down to you now. You're better than Trump. You're not a jerk like he is. We will all. It's not going to work that way. They cannot do that. They can't do it. And there's going to be several people up on stage, and Trump is going to do his Don Rickles thing where he goes down the dais, right, and takes a shot at all of them. The only thing that's going to stop this is, and you can see it when he speaks, he's not the same stand-up comedian that he was 6 years ago. He's losing it too.
Oh,
he's
he's
lost the fastball. We know that.
Oh yeah.
And so that's what's going to stop him. It's Father Time undefeated, and that's the interesting part of this moment where Joe Biden has a, how should we say it, spring in his step right now, and he should. And Donald Trump is just scrambling. He's just scrambling to stay relevant. So you're right, and I hope you're right, and I hope we look back and can say to me, "Oh, back in December, you thought he had his." I hope you're right. I do. But
I'm just so happy that this is sticking to him, and they can't get rid of it. And every time they continue to lie about, I didn't even know him. I don't know who he is. It's my staff's fault. It's the Pope's fault. I love that. I love the fact that they're twisting. Well, let's do the Apple bends the knee story, and then we're out.
Okay. This story originates from a group of people called Reclaim the Net, and in China, they were using the AirDrop feature on their phones, their Apple phones, and that's where you directly connect with someone, you and that person only, right?
Yeah. Right.
It has nothing to do with who your provider is. The government can't spy on it and nothing like that. So if you have an Apple device, you have iOS, you get these updates, really frequently. Sometimes you get 2 in a week. They keep updating everything. And in the latest update, I don't know whether that's 16.1 or 16.2, they changed what AirDrops can do only for people in China right now. They say they're going to extend this to everyone. The update makes a change where you can only receive messages directly from people for 10 minutes. For 10 minutes, then it goes away. And of course, you have to have a kind of an open line with people if you're going to, and I'm not that familiar with the AirDrop feed. I see it all the time on my phone. I never bother with it, but I get what it's all about. According to the Bloomberg folks, Apple's going to roll out everybody for 10 minutes next year. But of course, we get to play the pretend. Why are they rolling it out in China right now, this weekend? Coincidentally, when the Chinese government is trying to suppress public dissent. It doesn't look good for Apple that they've done this, to say the least. And the word kowtow would get used, but it's a slur, so we won't use it. We didn't use that. It's just, I mean, the courage of the people to stand up to that government. I was listening to the Daily this morning from the New York Times, and their reporter over there explained exactly what the zero COVID policy is in terms of how it gets enforced. And I didn't know this. Here's what they do. Everybody has a device, right? Everybody has a phone, and everybody has an app.
Yeah.
An app, like a health app from the government. It's in your phone.
Right. You're required to have it.
You got it. And just like a traffic light, red, green, and yellow. Okay. If you're green, you're clean.
Green means go.
You can go everywhere you need to go. If you're yellow, the government has determined that you may have been in a place or around people who have been diagnosed with COVID, and suddenly you might start to get phone calls from the government asking you where you've been, who you've been with, so they can trace you and intimidate you into not moving around. And of course, if you're red, you are locked down. You are toast. You can't move. And this is what they do there. And they use, of course, GPS technology to be able to know where you are all the time. I'm not quite sure how it works if you can say, well, I'm going out, but I'm going to leave my phone at home. I don't know what that means.
Right.
In terms of, but that's a police state. That's a police state. Or as Republicans like to say, that's what Democratic governors did in the United States.
Right. Roy Cooper. That's Roy Cooper.
Right. And it's really creepy. It's really, really creepy. And I think on the previous podcast, I said, well, China, there's just too many damn people. They can't get everybody.
Well, they're trying.
And they actually can't, but they can. And this is the kind of situation where it's clear that information, no matter how much they try to hermetically seal off the society, it is getting through. And, 1 billion Chinese people, there's going to be enough of them with enough ingenuity to be able to get information from the outside world in. And they are, because they're saying things and they're doing things that let the world know that they know what's really going on, even if they can't directly communicate in the way you would want to with modern technology. So we don't know how this is all going to turn out. The conventional wisdom is this is what the Chinese government does. They always crush it. They always destroy dissent. They always win. Well, that's always true until it isn't.
That's right.
We certainly thought that about the Soviet Union until it broke.
It was all over.
But you could argue that the Chinese are a lot better, a lot smarter, and a lot more devious than the Russians were. But we sure didn't think so at the time. So we'll see whether. And the ironic thing here is, Apple looks like they're helping the Chinese. And I'm sure the implication is, if you don't play ball with us, if you think you're having a problem building iPhone 14 Pluses now, it would be terrible if a plant like that had a big fire and you couldn't build any phones.
That's right.
I'm sure they play that kind of extortion game.
Sure.
With companies even as important to their economy, in addition to ours, as Apple. So it's not a pretty sight. It's not a pretty sight, but we will hope for the best. We'll hope for the best. Meantime, of course, the Republicans are saying Joe Biden is so weak on this. He is so weak. He is just right.
We'll see you guys tomorrow.